What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Fighting Words Friday morning, August 1st, the first day after the 2025 MLB trade deadline. Anthony Sanfilippo is here. I'm Bob Wankel, and I don't know what we're about to get into here. First of all, I don't really know how Anthony feels about the trade deadline. And second of all, I'm now recording in a new location. We're live from the parents' house. So we'll see. I feel like I'm going to be on a remote. You know when like WIP goes to a diner or does something out and there's dishes fall in and there's like a lot of chatter in the background?
You're Shea Wankel.
Yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of that this morning. There's no doubt because the kids are watching Netflix about 15 feet away from me this morning. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And the funny thing is I know we promised everybody that we were going to do a show last night, and then when we said that, you had forgotten that. Oh, by the way, you were selling your house yesterday.
Yeah, so
I
closed on the house that I was selling. So, there were a lot of moving parts yesterday, and complaining about the trade deadline just wasn't at the top of my priority list come 6:30 last night. So,
we apologize in advance for that. Hey, listen, as far as the deadline is concerned, and you don't know what my thoughts are on it, it's kind of because I'm caught in between. I didn't really express anything in the times that we chatted via text last night or all day yesterday as this thing was unfolding. And I'm caught in between because you look at a move like John Duran and you say, okay, that's a monster move. That's a big move. That's one that this team needed, and you applaud that. And then you look at a move like Harrison Bader and you go, okay, it's an upgrade, it's an improvement. But there needs to be something else, right? I mean, something else has to come with that. And then there was never something else. Now, to be fair, in the outfield market, there really wasn't much else that happened. When you look at the names that got moved and the ones that didn't, it became evidently apparent that the only way that the Phillies were going to be able to get a bigger name outfield bat was if they were willing to trade Andrew Painter, which they were not willing to do. And so you sit there and go, okay, I understand that. I'm with them on that. But at the same time, you come away from the deadline feeling that the lineup is just still one bat short. And it's kind of like the way we felt coming into the season when we looked at the bullpen, right? And we said, that bullpen looks one arm short. And boy, the bullpen was bad for the first half of the season. So it's kind of hard to go into this stretch drive now with the lineup that they're going to have and not think that there could be one more bat there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's all entirely fair. And Jeff Kerr of CBS, who covers the Phillies, and he's down there with you most nights, I know, he had a tweet this morning that I kind of want to read because what he says I understand, and to some degree I agree with it. However, I'm going to push back a little bit here. He says, give the Phillies a trade deadline of B+. Not trading any of the top three prospects for Duran was massive. I'm going to go Duran because I heard him say it, and I'm going to honor that pronunciation for now. Especially since the front office is high on all three of them. They weren't getting a big bat in the outfield because there weren't any big bats in the outfield to get. Bottom of the order is better, and outfield is better. Bullpen is massively improved. They still have Painter, Miller, Crawford, Escobar in the farm system too. Painter and Crawford will be helping this team during the stretch run. A lot of roster transactions are coming today. Stay tuned. Okay. If I look at the 48 hours that unfolded leading up to the deadline, could you talk me into giving the Phillies a B or a B+? Yeah, you probably could. But where I push back on that concept or that evaluation is that it all ties into this past offseason where you can sit here and say, well, no big bat was traded yesterday, so how can you criticize the Phillies for failing to get a big bat? But you brought this lineup that was deeply flawed and clearly not good enough into this season. And when you do that, it's incumbent upon you as a front office to do more to rectify that. And look, I know that they started to hit some home runs in the month of July and that there are some positive signals here. And I'm not saying that this is a disastrous offense, but like you're going to go into October assuming that you get there and you're going to have in the middle of your order Nick Castellanos, Alec Boehm. Like this is what you're going to rely on. And maybe even Harrison Bader, who, is having a nice little year and all, but he's just a guy. But in this lineup, I think it speaks volumes to what the Phillies lineup has been. Like You look at his numbers and where they slide into this lineup, and he becomes their like third or fourth most productive hitter. So I can go for the fact that there was no big bat out there to get, but when you whiff the way that you did last offseason and fail to address the needs in past offseason, I don't want to hear, oh, sorry, there was just nothing we could do at the deadline. It wasn't out there for us. Okay, well, sometime in the last calendar year, you should have fixed it, and you didn't. And I for that reason, I think that they deserve criticism for it.
Oh, I will never go against that idea. I mean, they deserved criticism for what happened last offseason. And as I've said in the past, I think that the criticism comes from even above Dave Dombrowski, and on all honesty, because I feel like the last offseason, there was a limit to what he could buy. Like, I feel like there was a limit on the amount of money that he could spend and the kind of contracts that he could go out and get. And he was forced to take some chances on guys that didn't pan out, right? And that's just the way it is, and that was why when I asked, Middleton that question when we had the availability, I said, do you ever look back and think that, man, we should have done something different in the offseason? And he says, yeah, all the time. He says, you never know. He's like, this guy could have a bad year and this guy got bad. And he gave the expected answer. But I got to imagine that he's got to sit there and say, man, if we would have just been willing to give a guy 2 to 3 years as opposed to just a 1-year deal, we might not be in the situation that we're in, right? And so that's kind of where they are. Are they a better team today than they were on Saturday? Yeah. Are they still a World Series contender in the National League? Yeah. Do I think that they're going to get there? No. Like, that's really what it is. Like, nothing's changed. Like, I don't, as crazy as this is my biggest takeaway from the deadline, Bob. As crazy as the deadline was, right? And there were a lot of trades and teams doing a lot of crazy things. We'll get into the San Diego Padres in a minute. But I came away from the deadline saying, I still think it's the same. It's the same as it was before the deadline. Like, teams address things, but whatever. I don't think anybody jumped over anybody and said, "Oh, wow, this team is now the favorite." I didn't see it happen. It didn't come to fruition in either league. So it's interesting that we're still in the same spot we were before the deadline began.
So it's interesting when you look at the current odds in the National League. I'll use DraftKings right now. Douglas Gilbert, one word, underwhelming. I feel that way too a little bit. Look, I'll make my point about the odds here in a moment, but I think it's fair to come away from this deadline feeling like, yeah, but I know what they did, and I understand they didn't part ways with their top prospects, and they might even get an infusion from these prospects, a couple of them in the short term, and maybe helps them this year. I understand it, but I think part of it isn't just about the weaknesses or the perceived weaknesses. Like, I do not believe I cannot talk myself into the Phillies winning a World Series with the middle of the order being what it is. I can't talk myself into the Phillies protecting Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper with some combination of Alec Bohm, Nick Castellanos, and I guess, Harrison Bader. I just can't do it. I'm not going to do it. So for that reason, I'm just like, hey, you know what? Do they have a chance? Are they one of 5 teams out of the NL that could probably get there behind their starting pitching? And if someone gets crazy hot, sure. I'm not sitting here saying it's impossible, but I'm not going to go into this thinking that, yeah, they're definitely going to win the division. Yeah, they're definitely going to make the World Series. They're going to finish the deal. I expect them to do that. I don't. And I think part of it, beyond the weaknesses, is just that it's the same group. It's the same chemistry. It's the same DNA in terms of this overall lineup. And you watch them go out to Chicago this past week, and it's just the latest example of, one, the fact that they played the months of June and July at totally 500, dead even, just total mediocrity, total inability to separate whatsoever. And you see this team just sleepwalk. They were terrible on Monday night. They scored early on Tuesday, great. And then Wednesday, you can tell me that they sat there for 4 hours in the rain and they wanted to get home, and it's the White Sox and the stadium's empty. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. You come out and you get pummeled late in that game. If they don't hit, you can't help but be a little bit fatigued. And at the same time a little bit skeptical of that lineup, of this group of guys as is. You go back to 22 and you're like, I believe in this team. There's a special juice here. There's a special, I'm not going to use the B word, but there's a special feeling around these guys as they really got going. And I know that didn't happen until October. That team looked like they were in trouble in September. Like, I know that. But like there was at least like this idea that there was an upward trajectory. This team feels so uninspired at sometimes, so unfocused at times that I refuse to believe that they're going to be consistent enough to do what they need to do here.
Yeah, it's completely understandable. It's completely understandable, Bob. And you talked about the whole, they got the rain delay. Then go back to Sunday night. They couldn't leave New York, and they got stranded there. They got stuck there because of a ground stop, and they don't get until 4:00 in the morning, and that's probably why they don't hit on Monday.
Time this season. It's funny you mention that because that's like the fifth time this season I've heard, they got a late flight.
Yeah,
figure it out.
Well, that's the thing I was about to say. Like, if your offense if this was like more of a one-off kind of thing where, that's the only time it happens, and the rest of the time your offense is pretty good, it's consistent, whatever, then you could sit there and go, okay, these are excuses that are acceptable, right? I mean, if it happens, look, the situation's not good. There's no question about it. Neither one of them. It's sitting around for 4.5 hours and waiting to start a baseball game during a rain delay and not, being stuck in a clubhouse in Chicago. That's not ideal either. I was there. I did it in Pittsburgh when it happened, right? Like, that sucked. That was an awful, awful day, right? And that was against Skeens that day. And I get it. But you can't keep using that excuse when you struggle in games that doesn't happen as well. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's
why you weren't able to get to the park, go through your normal routine, play at the time you expected. You got a good night's sleep. There were people in the stands so that you felt motivated that it was worthy of your effort to produce. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And not that they're out there saying this. Like, they aren't making that excuse, but when you hear people rationalize the lack of production, the way that they played this past week, I totally dismiss that at this point. Like, guess what? My two kids slept in the same room last night for the first time in their entire lives. We were up at like 9 different points throughout the night. I didn't sleep much, and I had to wait around for 15 minutes for you to start the podcast today because Russ didn't set it up. So I didn't sleep. I didn't start on schedule. I'm here. I'm going to do this show. I'm going to do my job today. Like, I don't want to hear it. But what you to look forward to is Nick Castellanos coming off of a 207 July in which he had a 598 OPS, and he's going to hit 4th or 5th for you this October. So get excited about that.
That's his worst month since April of last year. He's since May 1st of last year until July 1st this year. He was actually pretty consistent. I mean, not great, but
I'm willing to acknowledge that he's been okay. I think that we as a fan base have gotten a little bit carried away with the criticisms of him. That being said, I was a big proponent of signing him. I thought he was going to be a true difference maker for this lineup. A guy that, again, you talk about like juice and fire. Like, I remember going back and watching him with the Cubs or Tigers or the Reds. And he'd get the home plate and the shirt would be buttoned open. He'd be pounding his chest. Like, that guy used to have like a little bit of on-field fire. And like, I don't see that from him anymore. And you just see some of these slumps and some of the bats where like you can go up there 6, 7, 8 pitch at bat, and he might see one pitch in the zone, and he finds a way to get himself out again and again and again. Like, I've reached a point of, again, fatigue with Nick Castellanos. I don't think it's that he's that bad. It's that I'm tired of watching it. I'm tired of watching this guy do this. I want to see them move on from him. I want to see them move on from him. I want to see them move on from Alec Bohm. I want to see them move on from Bryson Stott. I mean, you wrote it in your story the other day. Like, you got a text message from someone that you could move on from 4 guys in this lineup. And it seems like it's like hyperbole, overkill, exaggeration, being dramatic. But you could. There's 4 guys in this everyday lineup that you're like, I can't wait to not watch this guy play here anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I wanted to get to this too. It kind of relates to what we're talking about. Conman 1010-2 or 10102 says he was watching Matt Gelb's live stream, and it seems like there was an implication that they were right on the edge of landing Quan until the last minute, and then it got hung up on Painter. And so I guess the question for you, Bob, is would you have traded Andrew Painter to get a player like Stephen Kwan? And would that have helped this year?
If they had done it, I would not have come on here and ripped them for doing it. I don't think that's outlandish. I don't think it's absurd. That being said, if you really believe that Andrew Painter is everything that you have said he is, and you've hung on to him this long, and you've guided him to the brink of becoming a factor at the major league level, then pivoting off of that in this moment, to me, is strategically strange. I will say this, and it's not the kid's fault whatsoever, but this dude better be good. I mean, he will come up, right or wrong, fair or not, with a tremendous amount of pressure. One, in terms of just the overall, the way that he's ranked in the prospect rankings, the way that he's been talked about, the way that he's been protected by this organization. We talk about pitch limits and just we can't touch him. He's got to be the guy. Like, there have been so many different factors in terms of how they've handled him that he better be good. Because, man, there's not going to be a lot of understanding if he's not good. And I think people need to know this. He's not Paul Skeens. He's not. I don't expect him to come up and be Justin Verlander within 3 months. I just don't think that's what we're getting here. I think he's going to be a good pitcher. Maybe he's a guy that profiles eventually as the top of the rotation arm. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But he's going to come up here with an extraordinary amount of pressure. And I hope that his overall psyche and mental makeup is going to be ready for that.
Yeah, and I get the sense from having spoken to him several times now that he does have that right makeup, right? Like I don't get the sense that he's a guy that's going to crack under the pressure. Just from he's very well trained in this, right? Like, this is something that I think that's why the Phillies kind of buy it a little bit. I don't think that they don't think that he is that guy who's going to crack in those situations. But you never know until it happens, so we will see. The one reason I probably would not have made the trade, and look, I thought Stephen Kwan would have been a great fit here, especially when all these teams are going out and loading up on bullpen arms to throw 100 miles an hour. The thing you want most against those guys is guys who make contact, right? And so Stephen Kwan to me would have been an ideal addition to this team. But I probably still would not. I probably would have done the same thing that the Phillies did and not make the deal, knowing that Painter is your best prospect for this very reason. Tonight we're going to get down to the ballpark and they're going to honor Jimmy Rollins, putting him on the Wall of Fame. Ed Wade, they're going to put him on the Wall of Fame. And why do I bring that up? Because those teams wouldn't be those teams if the Phillies did what people wanted them to do yesterday, in the sense of trade away the farm, right? When you get Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Cole Hamels, Carlos Ruiz, like you go through that core of that team were prospects that hit, right? And credit to Ed Wade, because he brought all of them in here, right? And
he refused to trade them in years where they had a chance. I mean, he was a punching bag. I hated Ed Wade.
Yeah.
High school me hated Ed Wade.
Yeah.
And they don't win. I mean, certainly they don't win in 08 without him.
Right, exactly. So at some point you have to, trust your evaluation. Yes, there's going to be the Don Browns of the world, right? Where, okay, we held on to him and he didn't turn out and he didn't pan out, right? So every once in a while, you're going to have those. But sometimes, and the one thing that I think, and you've said it yourself on this show, that bringing Dombrowski in here was bringing an adult into the organization, creating that development, the player development pipeline that was not in existence and there's a reason why the Phillies sucked for 10 years, because they really didn't have that minor league development kind of stuff in place. He brought people in here who fixed that, right? And so as a result, the Phillies are able to get 6 top 100 prospects. And so they are able to self-evaluate better. And part of the deal, for trading for Duran, I'll go with you. I'll have to train myself to not say Duran, but Duran. But part of getting Duran was including Eduardo Tait, who a lot of people say was the second best prospect traded yesterday, after the DeVries kid from San Diego who went to the A's in the Mason Miller deal. And you include a player that good. Well, the Phillies internally had him behind Aaron Escobar. So therefore, they didn't look at him as look at it as giving up their fourth best prospect. They looked at it giving up their fifth best prospect. Right. So like sometimes those internal evaluations matter more. And if the Phillies are internally evaluating Andrew Painter and saying this is the next Garrett Cole, then they're right to not trade him.
Well, it's also easy in the moment too to say, well, you have all this starting pitching. Do you really? If you could go out and get a true difference maker, put him at the top of your lineup, somebody that infuses his team with a different energy, a different look, some new life, don't you do that? But then you fast forward a year or two. Let's assume that Wheeler, the clock is ticking and that he's going to retire when he says he's going to. Christopher Sanchez is a nice piece. He's under control. That's great. Ranger Suarez, we don't know what his future is going to be. Right now, I'd say it's probably unlikely that he's back here. Aaron Nola, certainly under contract, and they're going to pay him big money. But what is Aaron Nola? Aaron Nola has to come back in a couple of weeks and reestablish himself at this point and kind of put everybody on notice that he's still the pitcher that he was last year. And will he be that moving forward? There's a lot of uncertainty. You just traded Mick Abel. Now, did I think 4 months ago that Mick Abel was going to be part of this future rotation? I didn't, but he did enough this year to pitch himself into the conversation. He's not here. So when you look at it and say, oh, there's 7, 8 deep, in reality, fast forward a year or two, and it's not so clear. It's not so certain. And the other part of this is there's some criticism that they didn't go all in. Like that is in essence. I don't need to label it that way. It's not so much about being all in or championship or bust mentality. That's not my problem with what happened yesterday. But the thing that you have to keep in mind as well is that these prospects don't just vanish after the trade deadline. You still have them. You have them this winter. When you start to reevaluate and try to reconstruct an aging roster and say, all right, is there anything out there now in the offseason landscape where we could utilize these prospects to maybe do something a little bit more creative? You're in a situation where you're competitive at the trade deadline next year. You have not depleted 4 of your top 10 prospects. You can re-engage in future conversations. It's not that all of these guys are going to come up and produce for the Phillies, but what it does is it allows you to continue to cultivate that depth and allow you different avenues to piece together a roster moving forward that continues to win. So I don't kill them for that. I just would have liked to have seen something a little bit more, I'll use this word, consequential in terms of changing the feel of the overall lineup. And that's why I think it just falls a little bit flat for me. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I'll say about that, Bob, before we move on, and I'm kind of with you. Like, they didn't necessarily need to do more in the outfield per se, right? Like, I mean, when you look at what was traded, I think Bader, first of all, Bader had the highest F4 of any outfielder that got traded yesterday. So the Phillies got the player who's done the most this year. Ramon Laureano is close. I mean, really close.
I really like Ramon Laureano. That's the guy I wanted.
Yeah.
He's actually been pretty good against righties this year because everyone says, oh, it's only about left-handed. I liked him. He was having a good year. I think he's a – yeah.
You and Joe Karmazin, who wanted him.
I did.
As well.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the guy is, you know.
But I mean, but no. But what I'm saying is like of the outfielders that were traded, he's the only one that's comparable to Bader. Everybody else is behind the two of them, right? Okay. So the Phillies, whether you want to say they got the best guy or the second best outfielder that got traded yesterday, they did. So it didn't necessarily have to be about that. Like you pointed out, it could have been bring in somebody else to play second base. I know Bryson Stott's your guy, but maybe you put him on the bench or send him down or something or whatever. Or maybe you upgrade third base and figure out something without, like, there were other avenues that you could have gone down that would have shaken up the clubhouse, no question. And maybe they weighed that. Maybe they weighed that decision and say, do we really want to upset that apple cart? Or, you know, what's the better? I
don't think any team called yesterday and said, "Hey, what's up with Alec Bohm?" And it's tough too with the Phillies. Like, though I am critical of Alec Bohm, and I don't necessarily view him as a long-term solution to third base because of the lack of power. they are offensively challenged as it is, and to subtract what is one of your better bats, it's a tough thing to do. But I don't think that there'd probably be a ton of interest from other teams in Alec Bohm. I do wonder if other teams said Bryson Stott could be a change of scenery guy. Not that he doesn't like it here, not that he's miserable and not playing well because of the environment, but just like, hey, the glove is outstanding. We know that there's more to his game offensively. You guys need to win now, probably need more immediate production from second base. That would be a player that would be interesting to us. I wonder if any teams floated his name out there in conversations. I don't think the Phillies would have been particularly moved to do it, especially because it feels like a sell low spot on a player that you like and that you still probably believe in to some degree. But I do wonder if there was any conversation whatsoever about not just Stott outbound, but saying, can we do something at second base to get more here down the stretch? I mean, Donovan would have been, that would have been a
David Whitman says Donovan of St. Louis would have been a nice pickup. Obviously, listen, there was reports that the Phillies did talk to the Cardinals, that they were asking about names like Donovan and Lars Nootbaar and Alec Burleson.
Yeah.
Ultimately, none of those guys were traded from St. Louis. None of them got traded. The Cardinals decided to hold on to all of them. All of them have different varying degrees of control. But Donovan's a guy that could have played every position on the field. I mean, like, he could have played anywhere. He plays second, third, left, and right. He could back up at short and center. Like, he could be an emergency center fielder. He has played shortstop in the past. So you could have done something like that, but you would have probably had to give up more than you wanted to get him.
Sure. One other observation that I had yesterday, you saw just moment after moment these trade rumors coming out online and your Passons and Nightingales of the world and all these guys, and they're floating all these names and prospects.
John Heyman linked the Phillies to 36 different players.
Yeah, John Heyman's
it's unbelievable. Every tweet the Phillies were in.
He's the one that I go, yeah, whatever. I just kind of scroll right past it. Even Nightingale's a little bit like, all right.
Yeah.
But at no point did I see teams demanding Miller, Crawford, Phillies saying no. Like, I just have a quick question for you. Do teams want these guys?
Well, I think so. I think that
were teams banging down the door saying, like, listen, if you're not trading Crawford, then we have no business with you. We want Aiden Miller. If you're not interested, then we want no business with you.
I think that. So here's what it is, Bob. I think when you're looking at valuation, right? I think that there were a handful of players that didn't get traded, and the reason they didn't get traded is because they wanted your best prospect. And then there was no second tier. The next group of players was like a third tier, and they're not worth the Millers and the Crawfords of the world, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe one of the closers, but you got Duran for not giving up one of those guys, right? So that's the only thing I could say is that, I mean, look, the starting pitching market didn't materie. I mean, a lot of guys that people thought were going to get traded that were starting pitchers did not. The Cubs did not get a starting pitcher. Like, other than Michael Soroka, right? I mean, like, they didn't do the job that they needed to do to really be the
both those NL Central teams kind of sat on their hands yesterday.
Yeah. So that's the thing I'm saying. Like, I think that the market was the players that didn't get traded. The reason they didn't get traded is because teams weren't willing to give up their top prospect, and then the guys that did get traded probably weren't worth your second, third, and fourth best prospects, right? And then, so that's why when you say was there, sure there was interest. I'm sure the Twins would have loved one of those guys for Harrison Bader, right? Like, but it's not going to get you. That's not going to get you that player.
That makes sense. Let me, since we're talking about prospects, let's talk about the immediate and short-term future of some guys, and I'll start with the one that is probably the least relevant and probably not relevant at all. He is not relevant at all, I should say, to 2025, which is Aiden Miller. Look, they could certainly use him next year or at the end of next year or going into 27. Stop being what he is, the uncertainty around Bohm. Like, there is a void here that he would fill. What point is it concerning that he is just not hit this year pretty much at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I always felt that the Phillies looked at Aiden Miller and thought, oh, 26 is going to be the year that we think that he finds his way to the majors. And maybe he's a year behind that now. Maybe he's closer to 27. But yeah, of course it's concerning. Hasn't had a good season down there. It really hasn't. I think that Aiden Miller was a guy that they were looking to, if they could get, I guarantee you when they said they went down to the wire on Stephen Kwan, that Aiden Miller's name was the name that was part of that trade. Like, I really believe that. I really believe that that's who it was. And just didn't get it. It didn't get it done. So that kind of answers your question from before, like maybe Cleveland. And look, there was, if you watched MLB Network yesterday, or those guys talking about the Guardians, they are notoriously a difficult team to trade with because they set a value for their players and never move off of it. That's what they were saying on the broadcast. That they are a team that this is what we want, and this is all that we're going to take. And you're not negotiating us down, whatever, but they said it early. So maybe Aiden Miller wasn't enough to get Stephen Kwan. So maybe Cleveland doesn't value him as much, to answer your previous question. I do think it's a concern that he's not hit this year, but it's only 1 year. He is still very young. If this continues into next year, then I think it's a bigger concern.
Andrew Painter. They refused to trade him. We thought he'd be up here July-ish. It is no longer July-ish. It is August-ish. Do they have room for him? Can he contribute out of the bullpen? What's going to happen with this guy?
That's a great question. I mean, look, I think his last two starts have been really good. Went more than 6 innings in both, threw over 100 pitches for the first time, starting to look a little bit better now. I still don't think he's a call him up today kind of guy. I think you're looking later in the month, if not into September. But then you have the odd opportunity to expand your roster in September. And maybe he's a guy, that's when you call him up. And that's when he gets his opportunity. And you see what he can do at this level. Give him a few starts. See what it's like. I mean, who knows what happens between now and then. There's a lot of
do you think the way I view it is that they would not bring him up right now? They would probably wait and see, is Nola going to be on track? Does everybody else stay healthy? And if one of those guys does have to be sidelined for some period of time, or Nola is delayed, it's not going to be, let's give Taiwan 4 more starts. It's like, okay, enough of that. Here's Andrew Painter.
Yes, I think that's exactly.
And if not, then we'll see you in September. Maybe you make a start or two, but you're really more being geared up to audition for a bullpen spot to see if you can do this in October.
Yeah.
That's my read on it.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And, Nola's rehab start got washed out yesterday. He was supposed to make his first rehab start for Lehigh Valley up in Worcester, Massachusetts. They had some rain. So he's going to pitch today as part of their doubleheader. I don't know if he's going first game or second game, but and then you'll see. I mean, he's supposed to throw 65 pitches in that game today. Let's see how he looks, right? I mean, they say 3 to 4 rehab starts for Nola. That's at least 2 weeks. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, where he's at that point, and then they're going to make a determination.
So we need to watch. We're going to see Taiwan make at least another couple starts here, right?
Probably at least 2, right? At least 2.
Well, he only gave up 2 runs in 5 innings the other day? I mean, it was fine. I just have to watch.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, so the one guy we haven't gotten to, and we're going to get to here right now.
Saving him for last because it's the most complicated.
Yeah, and this relates to Doug's question. Who do you think is the odd man out in the outfield? Has to be Rojas, right? I think that there's two odd men out in the outfield, to be honest with you.
I mean, look, I think Kepler's going to get DFA'd here, and I think that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so the way I see it is, you have to. One of these guys has to go for Bader, and then I think Crawford's up here.
Well, so in essence, you don't have to have one of these guys go for Bader. Like, you could send Weston Wilson back down.
I wouldn't.
I'm with you. I'm just saying that that option does exist, right? I mean, that's certainly a possibility.
Are they going to will their way through a full season of Max Kepler because he's hitting with some? What was the line yesterday? He's starting to hit with some pop against righties or something.
Yeah. Well, so here's how I look at it, Bob. And I used what Dombrowski said yesterday as the measure, right? And I wrote about this on Patterson, but first question that Dombrowski was asked in the press conference was, how does Bader and Rojas kind of fit? Like, you have two right-handed hitting guys, play center field, both good defensively. Bader's obviously the better hitter. Like, how does that work? Does the possibility exist that they can stay on the roster together? And Dombrowski goes, the possibility exists, but that's a decision we'll make tomorrow. That's all he said, right? So that to me,
it's not happening.
It's not going to happen, right? So that automatically, to me, that means Rojas is going down. He's going to get optioned, right? In my mind, that's what that meant. Then he was asked about Kepler, and Kepler, he said, well, he's playing left field for us at this time. He's actually been swinging the bat a little bit better, particularly versus right-handed pitching, but he's part of our roster at this time.
At this time. He said it twice.
Twice said it. So to me, that means that, okay, he's not long for the roster. And he's the guy that's going to go when Justin Crawford gets called up. Now, what does he say about Justin Crawford? This is where the difference comes in, because you heard him say nothing about Rojas, very little about Kepler, and then this. No decision has been made, but we think he's ready to play at the big league level. We could bring him up, but if we do bring him up, he needs to play a lot. I'm not sure that we're in a position to do that at this point today, but he's not somebody that we would hesitate to bring up if we decided that it was the right thing to do. Justin's got elite talents. He's a good outfielder. He can fly. He really runs well. He's got good bat-to-ball skills. He's aggressive on the bases. He makes a lot of contact. He's got an unusual batting style in that he hits a lot more balls on the ground, which in his case I don't think is really bad. Also, he hits a lot of balls to the opposite field, and he also has the speed to beat those out. He's an exciting type of player. Holy shit. Like the words that just kept pouring out about Justin Crawford.
Yeah.
He's coming. Whether it's today or not, he's going to be here within a couple of days.
Why not just do it? Just do it today. Yeah. You know what would make me feel a little bit better? And look, there's a human element to the game, and Max Kepler might be the best guy on earth. And I don't want to sit here and get rid of this guy. I hope I never see him again. But he's not very good, and he's been a net negative for this team. And I talk about changing the field of the DNA of the team. Just give me a different look. Just give it to me. That's what I want to see this afternoon. I want the notification. Johan Rojas has been sent down. Max Kepler has been DFA'd. We are bringing up Justin Crawford. Let's ride. I just want to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to and so I guess, and I don't know why. I mean, if you've pretty much put it into your head that Max Kepler is not going to be a guy that helps you down the stretch and into October, why you drag it out? I don't understand. I mean, he's owed probably about
$3 million.
Yeah, a little over $3 million, right, is the guess. If you think that it's a sunk cost, why not just make it a sunk cost? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to get another 10 at bats out of him and say, okay, now it's a sunk cost? What's the I don't see the difference.
I would just take my chances with a Crawford, Marsh, Bader
rotation between the three of them in those two spots.
If Crawford's not really hitting the way that they want him to, and they feel then go Marsh, Bader, that's fine.
Yeah,
you're not worse because of that.
Right. I agree.
I mean, you can't sit here and look at it and say Max Kepler on this roster really gives us this, unless the one thing would be you stash him. He's a bench option. You need a left-handed hitter late in the game against a righty, and you're looking to pop one. Could he do that? Maybe. Is that worth the roster spot? Probably not.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. You just traded for Bader. When is Max Kepler playing?
Yeah.
Right now, he's not.
How happy is he going to be in that role? Right.
Yeah. I mean, really not happy at all. And where does he fit? I don't know.
And then in September, I know rosters don't expand the way that they used to, but I would assume that Rojas probably comes back as that added defender, run around. I mean, I think he would come back at some point. I don't know.
Could.
Still kind of redundant. Still
Yeah.
kind of not like an obvious role. The one thing that people do need to understand is that Crawford is not. He's not as good as Rojas defensively. Like, I'll say that. Like, he's not as polished. He's not. There's going to be some. I think people will be a little bit surprised because they hear speed and, oh my God, he can fly around. He's a great athlete. We hear about all the ways that he can get on base using his athleticism. That must translate to electric defense. And in time, he may get there. But some of those skills out there are a little bit unrefined still.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people who think that he's ultimately a left fielder and not a center fielder, right? I mean, and that's interesting. Like, I still think that that's where it's going to end up. I think he ultimately ends up in left field. I don't think he ultimately ends up in center, and that's why I think that they traded for a guy like Bader because they look at Bader as a center fielder,
right?
And then if you're going to call up Crawford, you put Crawford in left.
So I got sidetracked talking about the odds earlier, but people, I think, were surprised to see if you saw some of the tweets last night, and you'll be surprised to hear it now. But if you look at the current odds to win the World Series, it's the Dodgers who are far and away the favorite, but standing in second, tied with the Tigers in this moment, according to DraftKings anyway, is the Phillies. And what's really interesting about that is that if you look at the NL East odds, it's actually the Mets who are favored to win the East by a hair right now at -125. The Phillies are -105. And so how do you read into that? And some of it's about the money that the sports books have taken in and what risk they've already previously assumed in trying to, navigate that. But the Mets have a half-game lead right now. They made some moves that should make their bullpen better, maybe make the team better as well. Cedric Mullins. And I want to talk to you about that here in a minute, but the ability to get to the finish line, I think this is fair. Like, could you tell me at this moment that you think the Mets are going to win the division? I'd say, like, okay, like I even might give them like a 51-49 split. I don't necessarily, but you could talk me into that. But in terms of getting to the end and winning it all, I think the Phillies are still better constructed to possibly make that run than the Mets.
I think so too.
Though I think the Mets could very well win the division.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets did a nice job, I thought, with the deadline. I mean, my whole thing about them was their pitching isn't good enough. I mean, that's I've been saying it all year. And when you look at what they did in the bullpen, the arms that they added there, they made the bullpen better. They certainly improved the bullpen.
I mean, the combination of Rogers is a nightmare for the Phillies specifically, but he's been very good this year. He's certainly funky and all of those things. And Helsley and Diaz has had a really good year. And those three guys combined with some guys that are there still that have had okay years, like that's a decent bullpen now. Like that's not a dumpster fire. Oh, wait till the 8th. They're going to blow it. Like right now, you probably feel pretty good about taking leads late in the games if you're the Mets.
Yeah, the one thing about the Mets is I still don't think that they improved their starting pitching.
Yeah.
They really didn't. And the teams that I felt that needed to get starting pitching didn't get it. Like the Mets and the Cubs, I just they didn't add starters. And it was like,
well, let me ask you this. That's what was particularly annoying to me. Yeah. Like you get the Duran news and you're like, oh, look, here we go. And then in real time, the Phillies are getting pummeled by the White Sox, like almost like 45 minutes after they make the deal. And that loss was more annoying because you had a chance to go back into first place and you didn't do it. So I'll just ask you straight up here, who's going to win this division?
I still think the Phillies are going to win the division.
And where are they going to slot in? Are they going to be the 3rd seed?
They may be. I mean, so the NL Central is not good. And I think that the Brewers and Cubs, although they do have to kind of fight it out a little bit.
Depth in the Central to sort of push them a little bit with the Reds being functional. Like, and then.
I don't know. I still think one of those teams.
It's hard to say that the NL Central is not good when the two top teams are right there in terms of having best records in the National League.
Yeah, but you have 2 bad teams in there, right? All right. Maybe they're not. Maybe I was overstating it. Maybe they're.
St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis looks cooked. In fairness.
Yeah.
And the Pirates don't hit at all, but the Pirates can still,
Yeah. Oh. All right. Fair. I'll retract that.
I get your point.
But I think one of them is going to be a 1 or a 2 seed, and I think that The Dodgers are going to hang on as up there as well. So yeah, I do think that whoever wins the National League East is going to be the 3 seed. It's not ideal. It's not ideal because then you got to play a wild card. I mean,
good.
And it well could be the Padres. It well could be the
Padres,
Mets.
who might be the best team in the National League.
Right. It could be the Padres. It could be the Mets. Like, it could be one of those teams. Like, I don't necessarily think it's an ideal situation to put yourself in.
I'll repeat something I said this time a year ago, or maybe coming up in a couple of weeks. I want no part of the Mets in the playoffs again. I don't want to see it. I don't want them. I don't want revenge. Like, I want nothing to do with the Mets. I'd rather play the Padres, and I think the Padres are much better. I don't want the
Padres are a better team than the Mets.
Yeah, they are. I totally agree with you. I want nothing to do with the Mets. I'd rather play the Dodgers. Like, let's just see. I'd almost be like, you know what? Give me the Dodgers. Let's go. Like, let's just see what it is. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. See that. I think the Phillies match up better against the Dodgers. They really do. They just do.
Let's get to one last thing here.
Yeah. So one last thing. Oh, the kid's coming to visit you, Bob. Is that what's going on? Yeah, it's good. It's all good. You can meet yourself. That's all good. One last thing is I wanted to get into two funky statistical things that happened. Yeah, that's great. It's awesome. Netflix is over. 2 funky statistical things that happened in baseball this week. One was last night. One was the other night. I think it was on Wednesday. First one was the Yankees. So Yankees became the first team in the history of baseball this week to be trailing in the 8th inning, come back and either tie or take the lead, be trailing in the 9th inning, tie it, be trailing in the 10th inning, tie it, and then win it in the 11th. First time that's ever happened in a game, right? Pretty wild stuff there in New York. And then yesterday, the Braves and the Reds, they're playing a close game. In the top of the 8th, the Braves score 8 runs in the top of the 8th. Blow it open. All right, great. The Reds score 8 runs in the bottom of the 8th to tie the game. When does that happen?
Yeah, I believe the first 8 hitters reached with hits, too. It kind of looked like the White Sox the other day against Max Lazar.
Yeah, it was wild. Braves won it ultimately by a run. I think it was 12.
I think the Braves are a team. What a weird deadline for them. I've said this to you a couple of times this year. Like, we always look at the Braves as the standard. Like, they're one of the smartest guys in the room. I don't know what they're doing. That deadline was very strange. It's like they're trying to middle it. Like, there's this belief, I guess, that they think that this is just a bad year. But there were guys on expiring deals that they could have moved on from and didn't. Really strange deadline.
Really strange. And another strange deadline team was the Angels.
Yeah.
They decided to do nothing. I mean,
we're not good enough. Let's not add really significance, and also we're not bad enough. Let's not punt.
Yeah. So,
being a fan of that team has to be just an absolute soul-sucking experience.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, so I brought up those things just because I think that, it's fun to say in baseball, and we say it all the time. You never know what you're going to get in a baseball game.
By the way, I actually, once you texted me about the Braves-Reds game, I started to lock in on it. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens here. What a horrible loss for the Reds. Talking about a team that's trying to, work their way into the wild card situation. You come back after being down 8, tie the game, and then you lose. Oh,
yeah,
that's a tough one.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to bring up was we didn't even mention it, but what the hell with the Minnesota Twins? They traded 10 players off their roster yesterday. 10. A lot of them.
Absolutely incredible. This is a team that's in the playoffs very recently, a competitive team. My question to you is, what is Byron Buxton doing? Like, don't you in the middle of that flurry of activity say, all right, I'm out of here. Find me something.
Yeah.
I mean, you must really, if and maybe, I don't know how it played out, but if he said, no, I'm good, I want to be here. I mean, that dude must love Minnesota. Because I don't know how you sit there through that and stay after what they just did.
Cody Clemens is the new team leader, according to David Waitman.
Go ahead, Cody. Incredible.
That's great. Well, that's it for Phillies Tigers this weekend, Bob. Great matchup tomorrow with Wheeler against Skubal. what do you think this weekend? How do you view this matchup? Tigers haven't been great recently, but Phillies have only been about 500. So
Phillies just lost 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. Everyone's kind of like not in on the Phillies right now. I think the Phillies are going to sweep the Tigers this weekend.
Wow. I'll go 2 out of 3. I just don't see how they hit Scooble. I don't know. They don't have a great lineup against lefties to begin with, and now you're going to face Scooble. I'll give the Tigers the Saturday game, but yeah, I kind of agree. I think the Phillies. I love their matchup on Sunday night. Sunday night baseball. I think it's a good matchup for them, and I'll give the Phillies tonight. I think that they win this one tonight. So I go 2 out of 3 for the Phils.
I'll limb here a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to another episode here of Fighting Words. Don't forget you can subscribe to Fighting Words on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. But we love it when you come and join us right here live when we're streaming on YouTube. That's right. Click the thumbs up, ring the bell. Make sure you never miss a show. Always know when Bob and I go live to talk Phils. And if you're listening in the podcast, if you want to find us on YouTube, it's youtube.com/@fightingwords. So for Bob Wankel, I'm Anthony Sanfilippo saying thanks for tuning in. We will talk to you on Monday.